Welcome to Small Known Big Issues. Trump, Musk, and Republicans are making a compelling case to the American people. Why shouldn't we cut federal spending, both at home and abroad, and use the savings to help working class families? Let's express this as a set of goals. 1. Cut waste in the federal government. 2. Cut spending on international issues. 3. Bring down the deficit. And 4. Give the savings to America's working class families. This sounds decent at face value. Let's try to Scooby-Doo the mask off this thing and see what's underneath. So what exactly does Trump want to cut? Well, he wants to cut the education department. Who needs that? The FDA, health agencies, medical research, tens of thousands of federal jobs. He wants to cut the U.S. Forest Service because trees are fucking stupid, and also funding for veterans. Finally, he wants to cut the IRS. At this point, you might be thinking to yourself, well, gee, Small Gnome, I kind of like things like jobs, education, taking care of our veterans, and healthcare. Well, have you stopped to consider that you sound like a goddamn communist? Let's look into what upcoming Trump policies impact working class families. First, we need to talk about the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Credit where credit is due, this saved the average family about $1,000. But for one, the majority of tax cuts by percentage went to the upper classes, and for two, these tax cuts will expire for American families this year. Trump wants to extend the TCJA, which would mean that American families pay exactly the same next year as they do this year. Trump and the GOP are also floating around a couple other ideas. Eliminating income taxes on tips, which affect less than 2% of Americans, overtime, which affects only 6% of Americans. He also wants to eliminate the mortgage interest deduction, which would increase the cost of owning a home. And hey, it's not like there's a housing crisis going on or anything. He wants to reduce the child tax credit. And while we're at it, hey, why don't we cut Medicaid and SNAP? Because do poor people really deserve food or health care? Let's look at tariffs. How much would tariffs increase the cost of things? About $800 per year. Do these policies cut waste in the federal government? Because Trump isn't giving out examples of specifically what is wasteful, this one's a little hard to quantify. Maybe. There is waste in the federal government, so let's just give this a probable. Do the policies cut spending on international issues? Well, not really. Because even though we're going to be cutting Ukraine and USAID, which comes to $100 billion, we're going to be giving the Pentagon $150 billion more every year. Are we bringing down the deficit? Well, no. Tax policies actually add $4.5 trillion to the deficit, and while Doge claims to have saved $55 billion, it can't actually account or verify 75% of that. Most importantly, do these policies give the savings to working class families? There's no tax reduction for 93% of Americans below 62. The largest savings are going to the wealthy. Millions of Americans will end up paying more for student loans, health care, home mortgages, raising a kid, food, and common goods, and we're cutting tens of thousands of jobs on top of that. This is Scrooge McDuck level fuckery. Underneath the Scooby-Doo villain mask is a shameless cash grab for the rich at the expense of working class families. I'm just a small gnome, but I think this is a big issue.